have you join our roundtable discussion. It's going to feature Lauren, who's been here twice already today from Digital Commerce 360, and several of our panelists that have been here throughout the day who've had time to stick around and hobnob and answer any of your questions. So welcome back to all of you, and I'm excited for this interactivity.
Thanks, Katie, and I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy that, you know, we're getting through everything. It's awesome. So welcome back to everyone, and thanks to the speakers who've joined again. Your panels were great, and it was fun to hear people and what they had to say. So my hope is really to stimulate a bit of a discussion. And I mean, the challenging part is we had a lot of retailers that I talked to ask about wanting to participate, wanting to have the old roundtable or the discussion in the hallway, some of which you guys alluded to in the fulfillment panel. So with that, I think what would be great is if we can just kind of dig in and maybe get a sense of how, what you guys think are important and what's on your mind, and maybe what you'd like to talk about for the 10 minutes that we have remaining in the discussion. So how about if Bob, I know you the most, so I'm picking on you from our discussion. So any thoughts in terms of maybe what you'd like to talk to other people about or hear other people talk about? I mean, thoughts that you have?
Well, we've learned a lot over the last 15 months about how we have to change on the fly our purchasing habits, how we have to deal with extended lead times in 2021 seems worse than 2020. And then aligning those long lead times, those product unavailabilities, that unpredictability in the marketplace with our paid search campaigns and how not to just flush money down the toilet. So those are the things that are on my mind.
So how the hell are we going to, let's just be blunt here. How the hell are we going to get through this? I mean, it's like we have all this fancy words and we say all these things, and I just want to say to myself, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to be responsible for this. So, you know, what do other people, you know, any thoughts that anyone has to help these guys? And I mean, how are we going to address this?
I mean, my perspective is that you never waste a good crisis. And so we have been, in our company, we've been hyper opportunistic about what's going on in the market. And we've been trying to form strategic partnerships to solve our problems. And so we're a global company, but we've been conducting studies of companies that have shared interests in our ecosystem of what we're trying to do. And whether it's been supply chain or technology build or government, we have been really going after strategic partnerships to help what I would call some of our long tail problems that we've learned through the last year. And then instead of trying to think about how we can just solve them all internally, we've been trying to figure out who has aligned interests where we can co-solve them and maybe share the cost of those co-solutions and also reap the rewards of those co-solutions, hard to say. I don't know if that inspires the rest of the group, but I could certainly later share examples of how we've seen some terrific success doing those things.
Well, I think you should, because these sound like a lot of words that are like, I'm not smart enough for all these words. So how can you give a concrete example of something that you've done? I mean, this sounds like, I always equate to the perfect husband. You know, it sounds perfect. Everything's going to be great. It's all going to work great. And then there's a 50% divorce rate. So can you give me a tangible example that I can speak to? That
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the perfect husband. I can't even.
I believe it. You look like you would be. So.
Yeah. So I guess one of the examples is we've been working on. We've had teams in different areas of the country. In North America, I should say the continent, that have these areas of digital focus. And based on the investments we need to make in digitization, we met with the state and provincial governments and looked at where we would want to, who might be able to help us support our digital agenda. And we made the decision to work with the government or the provincial government of Quebec, who was throwing a ton of resources to us in order to consolidate our digital footprint out of that territory and supporting us financially as well as with other resources to help us get it done. And then is also helping us with our logistics arm, which is we own our logistics across every brand. And we're in the process of moving and outsourcing our logistics. We made the decision that there's no way that with the wave of investment from PE funds going into logistics, that as an organization, we would ever be able to continue with first-class service. And so we've signed a strategic partnership with a logistics company who's going to take over all of our warehouses and ultimately begin to outsource our logistics efforts into one consolidated arm that can outpace what we can deliver by ourselves.
So at the end of the day, it's relationships the old-fashioned way. It's like knowing people, being connected, having the information, and when the time comes, being able to address it in a lot of ways.
And speaking up about what your needs are. I was asked to do a podcast maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, I guess. And I did it just as a favor. And some of the interesting things that we're doing now came from people who had heard that podcast where I had talked about challenges that we were facing, and they felt like they had solutions. And so I think sometimes just being vulnerable and open, it can help you start to create some inbound.
Great. Any other thoughts? Or Tara, I remember you posted on something that you put something about you were doing yoga or something on one of the calls. I don't remember what it was. I mean, how about from your end, more on the tech side? Any thoughts or anything that you'd want to hear, ask the retailers or?
Well, to Dustin's point, I mean, of course, as a technology provider, we often sing about, don't try to do things in-house, try to focus on what your business is. And Dustin just spoke to that from a, transportation point of view. But we speak with a lot of retailers who go in circles trying to develop their own in-house technology to solve different problems, whether it's, could be security related or not. And then they come to us months later after struggling. So I just echo Dustin's sentiment to focus on your core business and focus on your customers and outsource the pieces of your business that other people spend all their time focused on. So that's something that, we come across with our retail customers fairly often, that they're down the road too far. And then, when they could have come to us 6 or 10 months ago. I am curious to ask you guys, I had my first in-person customer meeting this past Friday. I'm fully vaccinated, I just will say as a disclosure, at the Red Sox game. So I live outside of Boston. And the customer is a retailer with both brick and mortar and online presence. And she was explaining to me that her forecasts were way off for 2021 because she didn't anticipate things to get back to normal. And that in the past 2 months, their in-store foot traffic is way up and their online shopping is way down. And I'm just curious, for others on the line here, if you've seen drastic shifts in the very recent past.
So we're a pure play e-commerce company, and we have not seen a decline in traffic over the last few months. So yeah, just
Tara,
one perspective.
This might be an interesting anecdotal story. So we live in Chicago, we're in Chicago, and I was doing a little shopping for my college-age daughter yesterday. I'm a good shopper. And I happened to be at one of the major malls near Michigan Avenue, Water Tower, you may know it. And basically we were in the American Eagle store, huge retailer, both online and offline presence. There couldn't have been more than 3 people in the store at 4:00 in the afternoon. And I said to the woman in the area department, which is their lingerie, brand. And she said, we're going to have to close this part of the brand in this retail store because we do not have enough customers. And the same thing happened. I was at a Northside mall that you could have rolled a bowling ball through the thing. And so I think it's very scary right now. So I think it's the answer to everything in retail is always the same. It depends. It depends on the retailer. It depends on the brand. And that's how it goes. But,
Yeah, this is Adam from North Shore. I think buying patterns are still yet to be determined how they're going to develop, and I think there still will be some more disruption yet to come as a lot of money is going into figuring out how to get to where customers are right now and to get into their mind today versus how they were shopping before the pandemic. So I think things will still evolve. I mean, for us, we sell medical supplies, and certainly our customers are either people or people that are caring for those that are, have underlying health conditions, right? This kind of new terminology that we all have here. So they are more reluctant to buy in the store, when you're caring for somebody that might be immunocompromised or something like that. And so I think we have an opportunity here to say, we can be a new solution for you that maybe was even better than the old solution, and really build upon that and build loyalty and offer them, products and a level of service that they never really had before, where maybe we're kind of stuck in a routine that just, they were at the grocery store or the Walmart, if you will, and now, they've maybe found a better way because they were forced to. So, we're doing a lot of efforts to try to understand the customer journey and really realize how can we reach these people that may not have found us yet, but are still struggling with getting supplies at the store levels. And the stores are all dealing with the same, fulfillment supply chain issues that us as e-commerce companies are dealing with. And, so there's still opportunities to, if you can get the inventory in to really deliver a different experience that maybe will be better than the old experience.
And I think
ultimately,
go ahead.
yeah, sorry, Lauren. I think ultimately, customers go online because they're looking for convenience. And so like the customer's journey, and like for a long time, the phrase that we heard at every convention was omni-channel retail, like whatever that meant. Like for a lot of stores, that meant buy online, pick up in store. Like people didn't really think about the customer. They thought about themselves and their supply chain and like what that meant to them. Like ultimately customers are looking for convenience, and how can we deliver the right experience, and knowing that there are going to be purchases that the customer just doesn't have the time to wait, whether it's next day or 2 days delivery, the customer just needs it now. And so how do we make the whole experience as convenient as possible? And there are some retailers that are doing a great job of that. Target is a great example. Like they're doing a fantastic job with curbside pickup and just really making it super easy for the customer to transact with them, whether it's online or in store, and to find products through the app and doing different things. So I think different retailers are adopting to these different patterns differently, but ultimately it's about the customer's convenience, and the retailers that adopt to that will win ultimately.
I think there's one other piece of it that's going to be critical, is a lot of the stores are short of inventory. And when you do actually go to the physical store, like I expect the item to be on the shelf, and I'm not talking like just a size issue. So the stock is going to play a really critical role. And I mean, to Lev's point, the number one reason people want shopping online is to save time. And so if you get there and you finally go to the store and they don't have like the towels that you want, or the item that you need, or the whatever it is, you're going to think twice about going back. And that's going to be a factor in this as well. Gretel, any thoughts? I don't understand social, so don't tell anybody, but
I don't really either. So no, I was kidding.
We'll be good together. So then just any thoughts on social and how people can take advantage of social, and to sell more, or,
So we work with retailers as well. So they distribute our pieces, and we started off as a D2C brand. And what we saw looking at some of the independent stores that carry us, especially over the last year, some of these stores didn't even have websites. They have such an amazing in-store experience that they could rely on people just to come in there, and they didn't even need a website. They didn't even want a website. So really smaller stores that do great business. And so we saw a lot of those ramp up and build a website and, get their e-commerce under control. But when you talk about someone like American Eagle, chances are their web experience is so satisfying enough that they actually probably don't even need stores. Whereas you get these more independent stores and they're able to, create this experience that you just can't get online. It's not about convenience. It's about literally an experience. So I think about, just kind of the contrasting models there, and, where digital can step in to help someone, and where really people just want to go into stores. But from a social perspective, it was really interesting to see all of these store owners, just suddenly they're in front of the camera and they're selling their little hearts out, and just killing it over the last year and a half. And I don't know, I just thought that was very interesting and cool to watch.
It's called survival, Gretel. It's like
It
at
was
the end of the
amazing.
day, you've
It was
got to
amazing.
survive. And I think, and also we have to live in these communities. And I guess being someone who came from retail, I find it a little depressing, but I'm not going to say anything. So anyway, other topics. I mean, we have a couple more minutes that other people would like to touch on that.
Oh, Lauren, could I jump in here?
Yeah.
I'd actually like to run an idea by Gretel, because I had an interview recently and somebody threw out an idea that I thought was pretty smart. With Google and Apple both moving to make it harder to do targeted online advertising, this person was saying that working with social media influencers will become more important for retailers and brands over the next few years. The idea being, if, for example, you're selling baking supplies, where today you could target people who search for baking terms or products. That's going to be harder to do. But if you find a bunch of influencers who are focused on baking, that they're working with them, reaching their audience is a way of acquiring new customers interested in your products. Does that make any sense to you, Gretel?
It totally makes sense in theory. It does. I think that like the key is to finding the influencers that people really trust. There's a lot of research out there that like influencers have access, they have the audiences, but a lot of customers don't necessarily trust because they're always shilling different goods. And so I think that if you can find the right ones and they are positioned in front of the right audiences that overlap with, what you're trying to sell, then in theory, that's great. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of reliance on first party data and just trying to figure out how to leverage the data that everybody's collecting over the last several years. And, figuring out how to create loyalty and retention and a dialogue with your own customers as well. So you're not always reliant on everybody else.
I thought it was funny that I can't remember who the person was that brought up the data. Oh, I think it was Bazad Movado. He said, if anyone knows analytics or data or whatever, ping me, after the call or whatever. It reminds me of the early days of e-commerce when nobody understood any of that. So is anyone facing any hiring issues or concerns about that in terms of, knowledge base or anything along those lines that they want to bring up any issues there?
I think the major issue we've had when hiring right now is people want to be remote and they don't really want to come to the office. And so that's one of the questions you have to answer as an employer is, are you guys going to expect me to come to the office or not? And that's a tough question to answer today because the answer is, I don't know. Most likely, yes, but I don't know. 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, I have no idea what that's going to look like. I think that's been the toughest. I mean, the talent is out there, but some people want to be remote, some people don't want to be remote, and kind of getting to the heart of that issue, we found that's kind of the toughest part right now, at least.
It'll be interesting to see. I know in Chicago, several large companies have basically said, we're going back to the office, like Citadel as an example, or BMO Harris, like we're going back. And then some of the tech companies have said, we're going to be mixed. And then some people put dates. So I think it'll be interesting to see. It seems like that will shake out over the next, 3 and 4 months. I don't know. It's crazy. Any other topics? Who's going to win the Stanley Cup, the World Series, and going to throw that in the mix? Anything?
We haven't mentioned Amazon once in this conversation. Does anybody have a good idea about how to compete effectively with Amazon?
I would like to say COVID has seen the death of customer service in Amazon Prime. We have an Amazon box on our porch every day. If there isn't one there, there's something wrong. And what Amazon has done, all of us as e-commerce folks have chased Amazon. How do I compete with Prime? How do I get it in 2 days, much less, same day in certain cities? And guess what? The Amazon Prime customer today, because of COVID, Amazon says, you give us your Prime subscription, and if you get it in 8 days, you're going to be happy. So I think there's a huge opportunity now for e-commerce folks who can step into the unmet expectation of 2-day delivery, albeit with supply chain issues, right? To, be better fulfillment companies than Amazon.
Well, on that note, I won't go into my Amazon spiel. So I will leave it though and say, as we used to say at Marshall Fields, where I did a piece of my lifetime, give the lady what she wants. And if you do, chances are you're going to get the order and everyone's going to be happy. So we thank you guys so much for your time and the contributions that you made and taking time from your schedule. And hopefully you had a little bit of fun and met some people you liked and hope to keep in touch. So thanks again and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Lauren.
everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone.